Hiya, I'm Jasper, and welcome to your video review for Star Trek Picard, Season 3. So, as always, I'm going to give you the good, the bad, and the furry. To start with the furry, nothing notable. Moving on to the good and the bad. This is called Star Trek Picard Season 3, but really it should be called Star Trek The Next Generation Season 8. So to put some context in just my opinion of the Star Trek Picard show, I really didn't like season one because I felt like they brought back all the nostalgia bait and characters and things that you knew and loved from the previous shows. And then we're like, yeah, now we're going to shit all over them and kill them for no reason and have them die horribly without any benefit to anything. Yeah! So did not like that. And then season two, they were like, oh, hey, that was a bad idea. Let's bring back nostalgia for things that you like and then not shit all over them. And that was great. So just don't watch season one. Watch season two, and then now watch season three. So with this, let me tell you some of the things that I didn't like about it. So overall, I would say watch this show, but watch it in like a weekend time period where you can watch all the episodes one right after the other, because I had to just I had to watch this show every week as it came out because I wanted to be able to talk about it with some people, and it was just extremely painful because there would be such high highs and such low lows where it's like, really? What the fuck were they thinking? Like, how is that your choices for this thing? So there was a whole lot of ups and downs. I think overall there was more ups, but it was really painful for where they decided to do some of the things and how long it took to come up with a good enough explanation for some things. I still don't think they did everything, but overall, I would say give this show a shot. So now I'm going to talk about some of the things that I really did not like about this. So, right off the bat, episode one, why does Crusher's phaser only have a few shots in it? Like, phasers are shown to be having way more firepower and have way longer batteries, energy ports, whatever you want to call them, just like way more, and then she runs out in like 5 shots. And for the rest of the season, they still didn't establish why. Also, spoiler alert, some of these things I'm going to bitch about are probably going to be spoilery. I'm going to try not to do too spoilery, but it's going to be spoilery, okay? So, just spoiler alert. Okay. Why did they, they either in just Star Trek Lower Decks or in previous seasons of Picard, or both, I don't remember if they had it in Picard, but, they established the look of the USS Titan that Riker was in charge of. I liked how that ship looked. They didn't need to be like, oh, this is a super retrofit to make it look like an knockoff of the Enterprise. Like, go fuck yourself, man. The Titan looked fine. Just keep it. Or, because you already decided to invent a bullshit reason to not have Riker in charge of it anyway, just have a different ship. There's other, you could call it the USS Greek God or something. There's other options for names of things without having to, just try to retcon in your own. I don't know. It was did not like that. And then you're telling me that in a society that doesn't have any money, that Picard is somehow not able to procure transportation anywhere. He has to come up with a bullshit story to try and steal a Federation ship. Also, she said not to trust anybody in the Federation, so he goes and talks to Will. Will would be like, okay, I mean, he's Federation, but he's best friend, so sure. But then they go to a Federation ship. We established a Deep Space Nine. There's a bunch of merchanty type people out there, like Cassidy Yates, cargo vessels, and he is Admiral Picard, universe famous for saving the Alpha Quadrant a bunch of times. He could have found a ship somewhere or replicated one somewhere to take him. He did not have to come up with a convoluted bullshit story. So that was dumb. And then the fact that, in the beginning of the season, the undercover chick, nobody believes you're back on drugs. Just stop trying to expositional dialogue. It was dumb. So, again, with the ups and downs, for example, at the end of this one episode, Picard is suddenly like, Will, you're afraid of everything, and that's why you're making the wrong choice. In what world have you ever said that or felt that about Will Riker? Shut the fuck up for inventing bullshit. And then right after that, they're like, oh, darn, we didn't succeed in the thing. And he's like, get the hell off my bridge. You just killed us all. Right? Riker says that to Picard. And then that's at the end of the episode. And then literally at the start of the next episode, they're like, man, I shouldn't have said that to you. We're best buds, right? Yeah, we're best buds. Okay, cool. Ups and downs, man. Because how they ended that was dumb. The fact that they solved their problem with talking was back to being good. But just the ups and downs. And then you have things like the Changeling knockoff. I mean, part of the problem is that so many things were changed. Like, Worf has a mek'leth. I love the mek'leth, but it was changed for this show. So with the changelings and how they move and how they look, it was unclear if it's just like, hey, that's updated CGI. I didn't like how it looked. I mean, it was quality CGI, but it did not look how I would have pictured quality CGI looking, of the gooiness and the just how they look. And it's not until way later that you find out that, oh, okay, it's because it's a weird subspecies with some other capabilities. Like, fine, but just, you could have explained that better or done better. I don't know. I just, about that. But speaking of the changelings, the fact that they were like, oh, hey, this changeling makes, like, it's so unique and so different that it actually makes internal organs. Like, they literally had a whole episode or segment from Deep Space Nine where Odo talks about, like, when I change into a human, I scan as a human. Like, that's why it's so hard to detect changelings. They don't just have the outer shell of them. They are literally through and through a changeling. A human, or whatever species they've turned into. So it's not a new thing where suddenly you can't scan the changelings. The new thing is that you can take the thing out of the changeling and have it separated from them, and it still takes a while to, like, cut into them in order for it to go back to a gel base. That is new, but you didn't even have to do that because, like, we established with the Martok changeling that they're able to just basically pump blood around in them to keep it for when they need to do the blood tests. And they wouldn't need to do the blood test if they could just scan the internals of somebody that they do with Tricors all the time. So that was dumb to try and retcon that. They didn't need that. And they did do some of the bringing back characters just to kill them off. For example, Ro Laren. They just brought her back and killed her off. And also, it seems like later, once you figure out what the issue is, and this is getting much more spoiler, so, but once they figure out what the issue is with the transporters, what? Ro knew there was something wrong with the transporters, and now we see why. Like, if she knew there was something wrong with the transporters, and you know what it is, just fucking tell us so we don't have to figure out later why the transporters are bad. Like, if you knew they were bad, say that. Say why. And then, like, their whole Starfield is like, oh, the newest feature of the ship is networking. Like, really? Really? You don't think the ships could talk to each other before? Like, you don't think that you could have just remotely piloted anything? Like, remotely piloting things wasn't a thing before? I feel like it was. I feel like it's been a thing. I feel like we have it now. So they can definitely have it then. I don't know. It just seems like a dumb thing to be like, look at our awesome thing. Networking. It's dumb. And then also, they established in Star Trek First Contact, I don't remember season 3 cliffhanger when Picard was a Borg as well as I remember First Contact, because First Contact's still my favorite Star Trek movie. You should watch it. But they established in First Contact that, like, Picard will always have some Borg implants throughout his body. Like, they took out most of them, but, like, just like with Seven, like, you're always going to have some because you got assimilated. It's just a thing now. So they didn't need to be like, oh, what's this magic, undetectable Borg DNA thing that you have inside your body? And, I mean, I don't really like that they had to keep on emphasizing that, like, Picard's in a positronic body that's old. I don't know. It's just, I always thought that was kind of a weird choice. Whatever. So I didn't like the highlighting of that aspect of it. And then Captain Shaw, he had a really flimsy excuse to be like, oh, you guys are terrible and I wanted you in prison, but I have an owie, so you're in charge now. Go be Captain K. Bye. Like, that was dumb. And then, like, this thing, it initially seems like it's about the changelings, which is already stupid because it's changelings, so we established that they're fine now. Like, you don't need to bring changelings back and, like, negate Star Trek Deep Space Nine's success. And then you find out, like, some things, again, ups and downs, that they kind of explain why that's okay. Like, they didn't totally ruin Deep Space Nine. But the other thing is that it then ends up being about the Borg. The thing is, if you watch season 2, it basically is all about the Borg and how, like, Picard needs to get over his prejudices about the Borg and just have dialogue. And when you have dialogue, everything's fine. Like, they solved the Borg problem about how the Borg aren't bad now. But it's like they were like, hey, just forget all that. We want the Borg to be the bad guys again. So that none of that matters. It was dumb. And once again, they show the entire fleet here of all of the Starfleet, which, like, if you see Deep Space Nine and they're like, oh, 800 ships, 600 ships, 1,200 ships, like, clearly there's a lot of fucking ships in Star Trek, and I don't think over the last 20 years they decommissioned thousands of them. So they're like, the entirety of Starfleet and the Federation is gathered here for Federation Day, which A, is just stupid because you're always going to leave some ships at various important places, but whatever. But even if you do just try to take it at face value that they had most things there, you have the issue of, like, there's not enough ships. There was maybe 100 ships, and that's just not enough ships for all of the ships in Starfleet. Like, yeah, maybe more wouldn't look as cool and would just kind of start blending in and getting mushy, but, like, then don't establish that it's all the ships. I just, did not like that. They looked cool, but yeah, and then the other thing is that they were bending over backwards to come up with reasons to bring the rest of the crew together, like super bending over backwards to make up reasons to bring them all together. So that, in some ways, was really, really just like, is that as good as you can get for why you're bringing these guys back? I don't know, man. But now I want to talk about some of the things that I did like about this. To start off with, they bent over backwards to find ways to bring all their crew together. I loved the efforts that they went to come up with story reasons to bring the Enterprise crew not just back together, not just on one ship, not just like, commanding a ship, but super spoilers for like the last 2 episodes. The fact that they got onto the Enterprise fucking D in their old spots in a way that made sense for the story. Like, that is fantastic. It is phenomenal that they were able to do that, where you're not like, why aren't there any young people? Why are they on this ship? Why? Like, it made sense in the story. And I applaud them for that. So, thank you. I appreciate that effort, and to make it make sense. That was awesome. Also, cinema level quality graphics. Discovery started it in season 2, and they've just continued with the rest of Discovery, Strange New Worlds, and Picard, just cinema quality graphics. And there are some amazing things. And not just the space battles in this one, though it is nice to see the return of, like, beam phasers in this one, and not the, like the short little things of phasers. Don't get me wrong, I like the short little, like, bullet phasers, but I like the beam phasers too, man. And I like that they brought it back. So that was fun. I also like how many callbacks and references there were. And I like how, I swear to God, that the little ship that they had in the bar scene in episode 1 was like the Eagle Moss ship. And I like that they just had callbacks and references and everything else to the previous shows. Even though there was dumb things like, oh yeah, the holodeck where we're going to keep hanging out when we have absolutely no power because it has a backup power system just for the holodeck, but we're not going to actually use any of that power to power our systems because that would not have us be able to have a talkie-talk session in a bar. But I liked the bar talkie sessions because if you just ignore the fact that they're having them on a ship that's totally underpowered, I did appreciate the dialogue because Star Trek is good dialogue. And like I said, I do like that they did adequately explain the reason for the changelings and whatnot eventually. And I really did appreciate that, like, they even did a good, like, callback in their show for, like, in the first episode, they're like, oh, nobody likes the fat one when they talk about the Star Trek Enterprise D, or Starship Enterprise D. And then, again, spoiler alerts for 9 and 10, like, then especially in episode 10, like, when they're like, oh, we need to get in the Borg cube, and they're like, we can't do it, and Data's like, bitch, I got this. And just like, I'm like, that is why that's the flagship of the Federation for a while, and, like, the fact that they're finally showing that, yeah, in galactic terms, the D can be nimble. I love that. That was great. I also appreciated seeing all the other ships in HD. I didn't get all of the feels when we got to see Star Trek or Starship Enterprise D in HD because they did do that super, like, awesome HD release a few years ago, so we've gotten to see a really good high quality of the Enterprise D already, but it was still well done, and I like to see all the other ships that we haven't gotten to see in HD as well before, and it was great to see those, so I appreciate it. Again, coming up with a logical reason for having those. That was awesome. I like the character developments, the character changes that they had, because Worf, man, I did not like Worf during my last rewatch of Enterprise, or Next Generation and Deep Space Nine. I did not like him at all. I was just like, most of the time. But in this one, like, he is still Worf. They weren't just like, hey, we're gonna do the, like, throw everything out with the bathwater thing. Like, no, they they're like, hey, it's been 20 years. He's done a Zen thing. He is still Worf, but he is not the annoying, like, stick in the mud asshole thing. And I've liked that they finally acknowledge the Deanna and him thing that started in season 7. Like, they finally fucking acknowledge that shit that they ignored in the movies and whatnot. I don't appreciate, though, that he's like, oh, I've always had these feelings about you. Like, really? Then why did you marry Dax? You thinking about this other chick this whole time? Like, bro, you don't need to say, that's not appropriate. No. But I already mentioned his Becklith. I like the updates that they had to that. Hopefully they make that in merchandise someday. That's a cool update. Again, they bent over backwards to bring Data back with the actor being older and have it make sense, and they did that. And I liked Data's new bio stuff because, again, a little bit of retconning themselves, because in First Contact they established that he got his emotion chip and he got to experience emotions and all that jazz. And here he's just like, oh, emotions are totally new to me. How do I deal with this? But I get that, like, having emotions programmed versus like a body that can make you have uncontrollable emotions type of thing, like, I can get behind that. And then also, he is hilarious. Like, I don't want to ruin my favorite line of his, but when they're in that shuttlecraft, oh man, and that is just my favorite line of the whole show. Just such good delivery. Thank you, Brent Spider. I bet that was them, like, ad-libbing, and they just took, like, their favorite one. I hope it was. I hope I see outtakes of that. But they also brought back Moriarty. Short, but sweet. Fucking love that actor, and I love that episode, and I love that they brought back Moriarty. That was awesome. And I love that Geordi clearly found Mrs. Right, because he has kids, and his kids are awesome. But just the fact that, like, in Next Generation, he was, like, always falling in love with the, like, inanimate object or the, like, wrong person or the thing that doesn't exist or whatever else. Just always in love, never worked out. And it worked out. Like, yes! Go Geordi! Love that. Shaw was annoying as fuck at first. But in the end, I did really like him. Like, before he, spoilers, before he died, I had already liked him. The thing that happened at the very end with the end of the last episode thing with his character, like, that was fine too. But I understood his perspective, and I fucking knew from the moment he was like, fuck you, Picard, from the moment I was like, oh, you had somebody at Wolf 359, didn't you? You did. Oh, yeah, that's the only reason people are like that to Picard, and I was fucking right. I was right. Yeah. So, yeah. There's a lot of good to this show, and a lot of annoying things. But overall, I would definitely say that season 3 is very much worth a watch. Even if you, like, maybe don't watch the first season because that one was hot garbage. I don't necessarily think you need to watch season 2. I think there was enough good moments with season 2, but like I said, season 2 kind of establishes, spoiler for season 2, season 2 establishes that, like, you can solve the Borg problem by talking and everything's fine with the Borg because they're not bad anymore. So I don't like that they had that, but it does have some good things with 7 of 9 and Picard, awesome Q things, some, Guinan things. So there are enough good things that I think it makes up for having a conflict with the general, like, bad guy from season 2 versus season 3. So season 2 is worth a watch. Season 3 is absolutely worth a watch because it is basically all nostalgia bait wrapped in a thing to make it logical. And they didn't kill all of the characters that they brought back. So that was good. I liked that. I'm interested to see if they will have a new show starring 7 of 9, or if they'll, like, and call that, Star Trek The New Generation, or if they'll have another show because of just how, I'm hoping this is popular enough, it would be interesting, but if they had a new show called, like, Star Trek The New Generation, but with, them just rolling around on the D, like, that would be funny, but I feel like it already kind of stretches believability for all the things that they had in this one, and I feel like it might be difficult to have them continue in that vein for that show. But I think having a 7 of 9 as captain show would be interesting, and they could totally do that. Just please keep going with Star Trek Strange New Worlds. Heard they finally announced that there's going to be a season 2, so yes. But yeah, I would definitely tune in to a 7 of 9 captain show of her captaining the Titan with Geordi's kids and whatnot. That would be awesome. And I would totally watch that. I hope that happens. I don't know if it will. But yeah, this was definitely a fun time with all the nostalgia that you could want and all the, like, wish fulfillment. And, did they have a lot of plot armor where they're like, oh, hey, this one ship stops the Borg takeover, so all the other ships just annihilated immediately? but then Seven of Nine takes her bridge and is able to like strafe all the ships that are firing at the thing they're firing at, and then not get blown out of the sky. Like, yeah, but it's kind of been a Star Trek thing from day one that the main cast has plot armor. So if you didn't like that in the 90s, you're not going to like that now. If you didn't mind it in the 90s, or at least are willing to deal with it, we're like, plot armor, it's a thing. And they got it this time. And that's fine, because again, it's all about nostalgia. And so give me that plot armor nostalgia too. So 2 thumbs up for this show. Well, maybe a thumbs down and a thumbs up, because there's some ups and downs with this season even. But overall, definitely think you should watch it. But that's all I have for this one. Thanks for coming. Thanks for watching. Hope to see you at the next one. Bye.